Hey guys, good morning um, and good evening. Welcome everyone to Aravana's sixth discussion for the Aravana Tamil Leader Speaker Series. My name is Valersa and I am the Director of Social Engagement here at Aravana. First of all, I just wanted to thank you all for tuning in once again. Our only mission is to just make tech inclusive and to aspire entrepreneurs in underprivileged communities to make it big and to go on and start their businesses. That's why we plan 10 inspirational Tamil leader discussions throughout the year of 2021. We are on our sixth discussion. We've come a long way. So feel free to watch out for the next discussion as well, happening in September. But without further ado, I would like to welcome Rajan, the chair of Arana, and he will give us a bit more info about this organization. Off to you, Rajan.
Hi, everyone. Hope you can see me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thank you for joining us on a Saturday to tune in to this one of the 10 sessions. And what is Aravanai? Aravanai means to embrace. The goal is to enable underprivileged communities around the world, but especially in Sri Lanka, to uplift through education, entrepreneurship, and employment. We do partner with organizations such as YAL ID Hub and the like. So to date, we have completed few YAL Geek Challenge supports. We even helped to bootstrap the YAL Geek Accelerator. And then just so everyone know, YAL Geek Challenge is coming up for seniors. And I know there's more would be talked about during the spotlight. And if any of you in the audience would like to be involved and would like to take part in helping back home, please do send an email to hello@aravanai.org. Without taking more of our time in introduction, but if you are interested in knowing more, please do visit aravanai.org to know about the team and what we do and what we set out to do this year and next. So just to kick things started, we have partners such as Articulate, who help stream our events. And I would like to bring Sashini from Articulate to say a few words about what they do and who they are and what they're trying to do for the community.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that, Rajan. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction to what we do at Articulate. So firstly, Articulate is the premier tech and startup media platform based in Sri Lanka. We have digital operations in Cambodia and Malaysia as well. So our goal is to unearth startup technology and entrepreneurial stories and narrate them across Southeast Asia. So we give our audience unparalleled insights, accurate local tech news, thoughtful features, and sometimes scathing opinions on where things are headed. So in a nutshell, I would say that our mission is to be a doorway to Asia for homegrown startups in Sri Lanka. And we're also proud to have been a long-time supporter and media partner of YAL IT Hub, and we're eagerly looking forward to the latest edition of YAL Geek Challenge Season 10. So we hope to witness a new breed of startup ideas and entrepreneurs. And once again, we are honored to be in this journey with Aravanai, together with Tamil Culture and CTPA. And we wish you more reach and success for your timely initiatives.
Thank you so much, Sashini, for that message. Up next, what we have is what we call Spotlight. We started doing this recently as of the last season. Last season, we introduced Sense Agro, who was also a startup that came out of the YAL Geek Challenge. Today, we have Arogya Life, which is a company that does medical and healthcare management software platform in the Sri Lankan marketplace, and I know they're trying to grow outside of Sri Lanka as well. And I would like to introduce Jay Krish from Arogia Life Systems, who is a graduate of Moratuwa University, and he's the co-founder and CEO of Arogia Life Systems. And he is also another startup that came out of Yalgeek Challenge. And I would like to, bring Jay to the screen and have him talk about what they're doing and what they're looking for.
Thanks,
Jay, over to you.
Thanks, Rajan. Yeah, thanks, Rajan. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So thanks, Rajan, and thanks this Aravanai for this opportunity. Just a quick introduction of myself. I'm from computer science engineering, graduate from Moratuwa, and then I had around 6 years experience in the software industry, working in Colombo. Then I connected through this YAL IT Hub, and we participated in the YAL Geek Challenge. And uh, by last 3.5-4 years ago, that I get connected through Ramoshan, who is from USA, through YAL IT Hub, and he was ready to fund some ideas that we have, and that's how the whole journey started. Then I quit my job and came back to Jaffna and started building this smart hospital management platform. So Arogya is basically a um, healthcare, like it's basically to build a health ecosystem is the long-term vision. And initially what we are doing right now is to connect the hospital by developing a smart hospital management platform. So the interesting part here is that this is a high-tech company. All the experienced people, and from Jaffna, the core engineering team is from Jaffna, and it took a lot of time to develop us a very huge platform that work inside large-scale hospitals. And right now we got more than 10 plus hospitals, including some of the biggest hospitals in Colombo, that we are serving as a full management platform, and we are successfully scaling up, and we are making money, and we are running on our own, and it's all happening now. The message that I would like to share here using this Aravanai is that I think uh, the interesting part is the model that we are building, the working model that we are building, connected with this people outside Sri Lanka. Like now, it's just an example how Ramoshan contributed to us from initially as an angel, and then he trusted me, put money, and then over last 4 years, how successful we are after 2-3 round of investment we got, and then now we are making money. So the model that I'm talking is that there are very high talented people who are moving outside um, moving outside Sri Lanka to get the high-tech job, while there are people in the country along the world, specifically these Tamil community people with a lot of money and would like to invest on such a people. So what we need is a successful models like Arogya. So many successful models like Arogya we have to build. So let's say now Arogya is one company like that, and we have around 30 people who has like more than 6-7 years of experience and making a the standard lifestyle, like even if you go to Singapore or US or Canada, how the people will earn, how their lifestyle will be. I'm trying to create such a lifestyle from these roots of Jaffna. From within Jaffna, can we make a valuable system and make money and create this joyful lifestyle? Now, when Rajan requested me to present here, now this the main goal of Aravanai is to build this, support these underprivileged communities. So most of the people think when it's an underprivileged community, you have to help. It's mostly funding, donating something, or peeping the helping the poor people. But in my understanding, when you create high-tech jobs in underprivileged areas, the number will be very less. That it will not be many, but you will create a small amount of high-tech jobs that create an ecosystem around each and every people. Now, if I take Arogya, all these 30 people, more than the 30 people who are working around Jaffna and even Colombo, there are some people. Every people create an ecosystem around their village. So that says a message to this the community, and this how things can grow by enabling this high-tech model, high-tech companies. So my message or my request is, now, given that Arogya is successfully growing, how we can create 10 different Arogyas over the next 3-5 years, or for over the next 30-40 years, how we can create 100 different Arogyas and connect these dots, so that this model can be a framework to build this underprivileged community in a different way of enabling the high-tech jobs. So that's it from my side, Rajan. Any questions?
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate your message to the community. We are also trying to do something similar where, we're not handing out fish, but rather helping to show how to fish. That way there's a ripple effect in the community. Like you said, creates an ecosystem around a person who's in a village getting a job, right? That's pretty much it. And thank you for joining us today, Jay. At this point, I'm going to move on to the our main story, and I'm going to go introduce Anjali. So Anjali, who is, I'm looking at myself, looking at, Anjali, who's an 18-year-old founder of Startup Dojo, and I'm looking at myself as, at 18 years, oh God, what was I doing, right? And this is young entrepreneur Anjali, a founder of Startup Dojo and host of Young Art at Art Heart Show. So here, mystartupdojo.com is an academy for teen entrepreneurs that helps high school students build real businesses. One 14-year-old Startup Dojo entrepreneur was recently featured on CBC's hit national TV show Dragon's Den. Anjali is also an international VEX robotics champion, having beat over 20,000 teams in 2 consecutive years. She also founded her first startup, Techsplore. At age 15, her work as a high school entrepreneur was featured in prominent publications like the Toronto Star and the Thomson Reuters, HR Reporter. Currently, she is enrolled at the Jeremy Fisher MNT program at the University of Pennsylvania, starting in 2021. She will be pursuing a double degree with the Wharton School of Business and Penn School of Engineering. Man, that's like a lot of, hits for a young entrepreneur. And like I'm looking at, I was struggling to get out of high school at that time. So, since we're talking about entrepreneurship and tech and being inclusive, we couldn't find someone better than Anjali to host this topic, which is around investments, because she is on the entrepreneur side, founder side, seeing investment related challenges. And we thought she'll be the right person to moderate this discussion with Mohan, who's also a founder and an investor. Anjali, it's over to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Raj, for that amazing introduction. Very, very kind introduction. I'm thrilled to be involved with this event today. And I'm so excited to be helping to moderate this really fascinating discussion with Mohan. So before we get into it, I'm very excited to welcome Mohan onto the stage. So hello, Mohan. So for today, I guess we're going to be exploring your amazing journey, and also your thoughts in the investment space. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the discussion as well.
How's it going? Thanks, Anjali, and by the way, thanks to Aravanai for hosting this pretty impressive what you guys have done, and Angela, your profile, the background is pretty impressive. So no, nice to be here and share the perspective on especially entrepreneurship, but probably focusing on fundraising, raising capital in Europe. So yeah, looking forward to the conversation.
Right, and speaking of impressive backgrounds, we cannot forget your incredibly impressive background, Mohan. So for everyone here, Mohan is the managing partner at Good News Ventures. This is a pre-seed, seed stage venture capital firm. He's also a successful serial entrepreneur with multiple successful exits. He co-founded his first company, Pulse Voice, in the telecom software space, which was later acquired by Enghouse in 2009. He was also an early angel investor in really cool startups like Kepler Communications. They're now the largest satellite operator in Canada, I believe, and also Enthusiastic Gaming, an esports startup, which is publicly traded, nearing unicorn status. So incredibly cool, incredibly impressive. And I also had the pleasure of being on a panel with Mohan previously in a different event. So I'm so excited to get to talk to you again and, share more about your audience, your background, your journey, your thoughts with this incredible audience as well. So thank you again.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks.
Perfect. So let's jump into it. Speaking of journey, let's talk more about your journey. You're now running Good News Ventures. Tell us more about what brought you here.
Yeah, so it's I would say I tell people about being an evolution for me. It's not like when I was young I wanted to be an investor or entrepreneur. So I was born in Sri Lanka. My dad's a teacher, so grew up in Nigeria. Came to Canada in like late 80s, so I'm aging myself again. Certainly like most immigrant stories, parents having multiple jobs. We were in university. I went to University of Toronto, did mechanical engineering, having evening jobs and weekend jobs just to pay for tuition fee and settling into the country. So graduated in 93 when there was no jobs at all as an engineer or tech. So as a mechanical engineer, automotive sector was dead. Switched to software. So I actually went to US, worked for a year, worked in Europe for a year, came back and worked for one of the largest telecom provider, Rogers, in Canada in the telecom software. And that's kind of where our concept of our company, first company, was formed. I had 3 other partners who also happened to be from Sri Lanka as well. We're engineers, no business background. We ended up, we thought we were building a voice application on a complex Unix environment, and we said, hey, why don't we make it simple and affordable using a PC? That's how we launched our first company, Pulse Voice. Long story short, we were in 40 different countries, got acquired by Enghouse, as you mentioned. And then I wanted to figure out, what do I do next? So I tried to do some investing as angel and didn't work out. Then decided, okay, let's get back into startup again. Started a number of companies, many failed as well, and successfully exited in another telecom company as well, different services, and also was involved in the automotive software as a startup. But I wanted to really get back into the startup. How can we help early entrepreneurs in the ecosystem, especially in Canada, and now we do, in North America as well. How can we support early entrepreneurs, not just with capital, but also the lessons learned? I mean, when we were startups in late 90s and early 2000s, the resources and the ecosystem in Canada was very, very early. And doesn't exist. As a matter of fact, we can't even Google up sales strategy because you have to go to a bookstore or library and read about sales strategy. So we thought, why not join a group, and that's how I joined a group called Yoke Angel Investors. It's like an angel group, high net worth individuals who want to really write smaller checks, and then support entrepreneurs. And that's kind of how I got involved in investing, and enjoyed it so much that I was doing it full time. I met my partners at Good News Ventures, Murat and Mona, and we said, hey, why don't we just formalize it and start running a fund? So Good News Ventures, I mean, the name is providing a positive connotation to something very difficult. I mean, starting a business is not easy. I mean, it takes a lot to take that kind of a risk earlier on. And then investing in a startup is also not easy. So I think what we thought of, let's give something called to a positive connotation, something that's very difficult. Launched in 2017. We have 32 companies in our portfolio now, our check sizes are small, so we are pre-seed and seed. So we define pre-seed as pre-revenue companies. You have some sort of a product built, and then we write small check, 100 to 200,000. Maximum we would do is 500,000, and really help the founders with so we do have LPs in our fund who are investors, who are successful entrepreneurs or corporate execs that do want to tie into the startup ecosystem and help portfolio companies. So we leverage them to really help these companies earlier on. And as it will be that most early stage companies fail, unfortunately. What we are trying to do is how do we increase their chances of them succeeding. So it's I'm enjoying it. Again, very passionate about it. We actually, our thesis of investment is all about why you, why now, and why this. So it's all about the founder. Are you passionate? Can you persevere? You have a big, bold vision. Don't give up. And then why now? What's going on in the industry? Is there regulatory changes, or is there user behaviors have changed? So we kind of look at that. And then why this tend to be, why is your solution better than what is out there? It's kind of the three areas that we focus on investing. And talking about passionate entrepreneurs, we are passionate about what we are doing as well. So yeah, so it's now, and I think I'm going to be here for a while until something else happened. But yeah, that's kind of how we got to where we are. You're on mute, actually.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It was really great to hear your story and to hear the progression from where you started to where you are now, and how passion and your journey is really deeply rooted in what you're trying to do and your goals there. Kind of as a fun note to get us started, you talked a little bit about your investment thesis and what really drives you and also the firm. Can you tell us a story of a really amazing investment, a really cool startup that stands out from your time as an investor?
Yeah, I mean, so when you go as an angel investor, it's you never really should focus on the return. Yes, the return will come, but you gotta be very passionate, and you have to be in it for a long run. I mean, to realize a return on a startup, I think it's 10, 12 years. I mean, it could take a while before you realize. Until then, so whatever investment you make is locked up. So if someone is going to go into investing, you gotta have a long-term view. And so when we were investing, I mean, certainly we come across, I mean, the biggest learnings I've had is meeting these founders and the innovation and area they're trying to disrupt, the problem they're solving are always very interesting. So unfortunately, many have failed as well. But they're coming out with something that stands out. I mean, we have companies that are, let's say you talked about esports. We looked at companies in blockchain and quantum technologies. But to me, one of the things that stands out is what you mentioned about is Kepler Communications. It's now, I mean, this is like people. I mean, 4 guys that come out of Toronto, the big vision guys. We're gonna build a micro satellite and send it on a lower orbit. It's cheaper to build, it's cheaper to launch, and it's just an idea, right? And I'm like, oh wow. So that's the big bold vision. And the more we spend time with them, I mean, you see the passion, and you see how they had this six-figure salary that they used to make in major aerospace companies. They quit that and decided to like kind of build this. And I'm like, not one, all of them quit and did it. So that showed that they're willing to take, they're very passionate, willing to take the risk, and they have a big bold vision. And now they just closed their Series B, and I think they've launched, I believe, 14 satellites. I think last one was with SpaceX as well. And I think you've seen that over the last 5 years, how an idea became a reality. And again, they're from Toronto. I mean, Toronto is not necessarily known for space technologies and launching. They figured out using an operator, whether it's from India or China or wherever it is, to kind of launch your first satellite, get some initial validation, and what they're trying to do is it's cheaper to launch and try really target use cases where they can monetize. And that's even better, because some of these companies is just an idea and just a concept of launching, but able to monetize is even exciting, because that's something that most startups forget, that in the end, it's not about fundraising, it's about making money in the end as well. So yeah, that would be, I would say, is one of the coolest story that I can always tell. Hey, and by the way, so when they launched the satellite, they put out, all the early investors, they put our names on it. So it's like, all right, so we have a satellite out there with our names, so which is interesting.
Talk about that. That is crazy cool. So your name is now on a satellite in space.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
That is very cool. And it was also great to see how, just sharing that story, you touched on a lot of the themes you mentioned earlier in terms of why you invest, the why, who was there, the why now, the passion, the relevance to the moment in time. So that was also very interesting to hear that in practice, and how your thought process went through as you were kind of deliberating and meeting this team. So thank you for sharing that as well. So a few questions more about investment, just to kind of prime the audience, because I believe we have a good number of entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs in the audience, who may be interested in seeking funding now or going forwards. So one more introductory question is, what are the different types of investment rounds? You mentioned you were pre-seed / seed. What are the other types, and how are they normally delineated?
Yeah. So when you're starting a business, as I mentioned, it's you want to solve a big problem, and certainly along the way, you want to make it's going to generate revenue, and the business model have to make sense, and you can sustain yourself. So fundraising it's kind of the most difficult thing. And the biggest challenge we face is founders spend so much time in fundraising, and then not necessarily that much time on running a business. So that's always a difficult thing. So I think when you're starting, the whole journey about starting a business is, maybe you're working in an environment, or you identify a certain problem and that you want to solve. So that's how it should start with. Now, how do you get investment to get started? So I would say, as I'm talking about different stages of investment, but the key part is, you're going to go out and ask for investment from people that you don't know. So to convince the people that you don't know, it does take a lot. You will have to look for either you need to have a great technology and then a good amount of traction, or some sort of a history to know who you are. So we always say, when you're starting off, first you got to invest in yourself. So we've got when we're angel investors, we will have somebody come and say, hey, we're going to raise 100,000 basically so that I can quit my job and then start this. And we're like, okay, you don't even believe in your business enough to take a risk. How do you, even though angels are supposed to be a lot more founder friendly, but they still don't know. So we always say, initially, you need to invest your own time. If you have money, yes. Then the next one is where you go into friends and family, right? So like you don't have that, or you ask your friend and family, they will like invest in your idea. Now at this point, you have to have some validation of customer need or solving a problem, or even if you have some sort of a proof of concept or a minimum viable product, so that you can now go back into a next round of funding, which will be outside of friends and family, which is the angels. Angels are previous, as I mentioned, they are previous execs or entrepreneurs who have successful, they want to give back or work with startup. So then you go into the angel round. So then you get to a angel round just to make sure you have some validation with some customers. Maybe you need to hire 1 or 2 people and get some validation within some customers. Now from the angels to an institution, which is actually and we ourselves also, there are many of these funds globally that supports that. So we become sorry, I think I got disconnected somehow. Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So I'm just going to go back to the pre-seed and the seed definition. I don't know if that's the last thing I was talking about.
We were talking about institutional investors and then going that route.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so the institutional, going from angels to institution is always a difficult one. And I was talking about the pre-seed and the seed stage, which tend to be, pre-seed is kind of pre-revenue, and then seed is you got some revenue, now you need to now grow, right? Or get some product market fit. So making sure that there is a need for your product and you've identified this is kind of a solution that your customers need. Now, as you go, there is called Series A, Series B, but there is so many different of financing, and ultimately either you get acquired by someone or you go IPO and start buying companies. So there's so many ways of different stages of funding. But I will also say, as a founder, try to look for non-diluted financing. I mean, a lot of the countries may have it or different programs, and pitch competitions like joining different accelerators or incubators that will actually also some investment into your company, and non-dilutive financing, what's called like grant. So if you are in, I don't know, maybe the green technology, some government or some organizations could fund you. So try to leverage non-dilutive financing a lot earlier on. So this way you're not giving up so much of your equity, because if you want $100,000 and you have no revenue, no product, how do you value your company? I mean, obviously now the valuation stuff out through the roof, but how do you really value the company? So somebody could say, no, you're only worth 200,000. So can you imagine an early stage, you've given out 50% of the company, how are you going to raise additional capital and grow as well? So I think I would say also, if there are opportunities to get non-diluted financing along the way, and in some cases you can get loans and debt financing as well. So I guess, long story short, there are so many ways to, especially now, there's so much capital out there to raise capital along different stages based on where they are, where they're at product, where they're at revenue, product market fit, where they're at customer validation, scaling. But yeah, it's I think once you at a certain stage, you get surrounded by different advisors and like we are big supporters of incubators and accelerators. If you have not done any prior startups, it's probably an easy way to get connected to that ecosystem.
Right. So thank you so much for giving that overview from the different rounds. Entrepreneurs can look at raising, whether that be angel, family, friends, and also the delineation between dilutive versus non-dilutive funding and how entrepreneurs can also receive that. On a more technical note, we touched briefly on the topic of valuation. How do you come up with a reasonable valuation for a company, especially pre-revenue?
Yeah, this is a lot of art. I mean, especially now, even we are learning as well. I mean, there's so much capital going into tech startups or startup generally, because whether it's the other ways to generate income or return for investors are not there, so they tend to go into early stage investment. And I think the valuation and what entrepreneurs can raise is, I mean, if I'm an entrepreneur, you're in an amazing spot. The question is whether this is going to last long or not. So take advantage of it if you can now. So the valuation is a tricky one, as I was kind of mentioned. Like, how do you value a company that is pre-product or pre-revenue, or some revenue, some customers, no revenue, some little bit of revenue, but you're building something and you're investing something for something that has a huge potential, so multi-billion-dollar potential, right? So it's always very difficult. So there is so many, it's more of an art in my opinion. Now, if you're an entrepreneur that actually built a very successful company and then start again, even without an idea, maybe with just an idea itself, somebody will just bet on. Previous investor will say, okay, you did it once before, I'm going to bet on you. Whatever money you need, whatever the valuation, okay, I will put money in. So that's easy. But most entrepreneurs are maybe first-time entrepreneurs. The more validation you can get on your startup or product or technology, the higher chances of raising higher capital and at a higher valuation. So as an investor, we strongly believe that you need to, you have to be fair. Like, so as the example I use is, you cannot say if an entrepreneur is raising 500,000 and you are only worth 700. So that investors own most of the company very earlier on. The key is to make sure that there's a fine balance of, maybe the entrepreneur wants to give up 10 to 20% at an early round. So then you come out with how much money you need, and how much money you need is not arbitrary. Okay, you know what? I can do, 2 million or 100. So it's a very, a balance that you have to be think about. You're here, you want to get to the next milestone. What do you need to go from where you are, whether you're post-product to get some validation or get to a certain revenue? Maybe I need to invest in developers or technology or salespeople. Figure out what you need. And so you got to have an understanding of how you're going to spend that capital. Now you come back and say, okay, now I need 500,000, but I'm only going to give up 20% of the company. So that's the one way to work. That's, maybe it's a bottoms up approach, if you want to use that word. Or it could be the market is saying a pre-revenue company now is worth 5 million or 10 million. And I know I'm going to raise, now the market is good, I can raise 1 million. Now let me speed up going from zero revenue to 100,000 MRR, which is monthly recurring revenue. I can now spend more. But my cautious, I'm a conservative, even though I'm venture capital, but my advice to investors is, to entrepreneurs is, be careful. You can easily run out of money. Like if you think, oh, let me bring in all these senior executives, they're going to take me from 0 to 1 million or 0 to 10 million. It never works that way. You could hire someone from a $100 million company as a top salesperson, bring it to a startup, and when I've gone through this, and they can miserably fail because they're not used to having the right support to build that company. So you need to hire the right people at the right time. And at the same time, you got to make sure your technology is something that they need. and you can see that the customer is willing to pay for it. There's a big market for it. So you need to make sure that that validation is done before you put more gas on the fire, which is capital, to grow as well. So a lot of companies crash and burn by raising significant capital and have a high burn rate, and then they run out of capital right afterwards. Yeah, so I don't know if I answered the question you had in terms of valuation. It's more of an art. What are people willing to pay for? What you're willing to give up? But I would say do not give up too much equity earlier on, because you give up, let's say you only own 50%, investors own 50%, you go to Series A and Series B, those investors will not invest in you, because a lot of companies at early stage, they invest on the founders. So the founders own such a small equity, who is going to, what's their vested interest? They might, find the next big thing and move on, or they may not be vested enough, and it's pretty much controlled by outside investors. And you really can't bet on that, especially Series A and Series B. So I would say, try to not give up too much equity, and look at the market and gauge it based on that.
Mm-hmm. And shifting gears a bit to now look at what life is like post investment, post successfully receiving an investment as an entrepreneur. What would you say a healthy burn rate looks like once you've received funding?
Yeah, like I don't know if there's anything. I would say healthy burn rate is no burn rate. Like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, I think, but as a startup, you want to invest in, right? So most important thing is understand, I would say, understand the unit economics. Unit economics means for that particular, like, if you're selling a product for $100, and if your cost is $90 or even $100, like, I mean, in some cases you want to, do this just to get user adoption and stuff, but trying to get an understanding of what your unit economics, if not now, what is going to look like. Because if the unit economics doesn't work, there's no point. It's either your pricing is off, you're undervaluing, underselling, or that the whole model doesn't work. You have to find a cheaper way to provide that solution than what you're getting, or have a path to how to significantly reduce your cost of that solution. So I think you have to first make sure the unit economics works. Now, if the unit economics works, now you said, okay, let me get this number of customers. So the unit economics is cost, what you're selling in the cost is, but then there is the other part about acquiring the customer. So what is your customer acquisition cost? So you're going to sell the product for 100 now, to $100, and then now it's going to cost you another $100 to acquire the customer. So it's like you're actually going to be losing money to get the customer and then to deliver the customer. So what we always like, from a customer, so once you know that your unit economics works, so that means you're going to sell it, you're going to have a really high margin, 60, 70, 80% margin. So that's good on one sale. Then now you got to figure out what is your customer acquisition cost and how long you think the customer will stay with you for that. So that's called they call it the CAC and lifetime value, which is typically depend on size. You can look at 1 or 2 years and how much of a stickiness you have, and then something called like churn, which is based on how maybe somebody who signs up and then 3 months later they leave, and then you got to find a new customer. So if you factor all that, you got to try different strategies, whether you're going to sell directly to the customers or you're going to use channels. So all that is very critical. And then coming back to the burn, because you got to make sure whatever you're producing, you can make margins, and then figure out what your strategies are in terms of customer acquisition, what your lifetime value is going to be. So with that in mind, burn rate can be like you've now got crazy adoption. Now you want to like expand to other geographic region. Then you can now go and raise significant capital, and you could have big burn rate because now you are on a global expansion, or you're introducing additional product to what you have. Even though you're losing money, but you're now scaling to get more customers and stuff. So the burn rate question is very, very, very tricky to answer what is healthy, because different stages will have different burn rates. Earlier on, you will have maybe a lot more because you're investing in technologies and customer validation and stuff. That means, what we call a runway. So burn rate is basically whatever money that you expect to come in, and whatever money you're going to spend, and whatever that you have left. And then that is going to help you. What we call a runway is you raise, let's say $100,000, and your burn rate is 20,000 every month. In 5 months, you run out of money, right? So is that 5 months good enough for you to get additional customers and additional validation to raise additional capital to go to the next level? So yeah, so burn rate question is very tricky. It's going to be a case by case basis.
Right. And I guess the next step from that is, how do you know when to maybe raise the next round? Once you have already raised one round, how do you think about that? And also, there is a big preparation process, I would assume, between raising rounds. So how do you think about that, and managing your time as a founder?
Yeah, that's a question that everybody still struggles to answer. It's a tough game. I mean, fundraising is never easy. As an entrepreneur, you're not a fundraiser. I mean, it's a good skill to have to raise capital, but you're going to be heads down building your big business, right? So I think the key is, like, that's why important to kind of plan out what you're going to, you raise a certain capital. You're going to figure out, I'm going to execute ABC is going to take X amount of money, and then it's going to take me until ideally like 18 to 24 months. So you got to raise capital. I mean, in some cases earlier on, you can do a 6-month validation, but the fundraising process depends on which cycle you're on. Right now, as an entrepreneur, you can raise capital very fast, but if you're on the down cycle, it might take you a year and so forth. So fundraising is an extremely tedious, time-consuming, and not so good experience, I would say, if I'm an entrepreneur, to do fundraising, because you're going to get so many no's, and finally somebody will say, yes, I believe in it. So the best thing is you head down, you're building a great company, you have great traction, then fundraising becomes easier. So I know ideally we say, you're going to have enough capital for the 18 months to 24 months, because 6 months is not enough time to even raise capital in a normal cycle. And then on top of that, 6 months, you could, you might think you want to get to that milestone. So key is you want to go from a 0 revenue, and maybe you want to get to 10,000 monthly recurring revenue. You could plan it, but things could happen. You can only get to 5, and what happens? So I would always say, have capital, have some backup, maybe it's non-diluted funding, maybe it's some loans or debt financing to comfortably hit that milestone, whatever the milestone is, and then use that milestone to raise that round of capital. Now, don't wait till like a month before or 3, I will even say 4 to 6 months before your actual time to raise. You're going to start the process of fundraising at that
time. And once you are fundraising, how can an entrepreneur be the most prepared going into that? What should they prepare, and what should they be thinking about in order to win that term sheet?
Yeah, so starting off with heads down executing. That's the key part. You gotta, if your business is, you're like getting all the milestones and your heads down, you're proving that you're solving a problem. You're proving there's a validation, they're willing to pay for it. That's the best thing that you can do. Now, that's nobody will know what you're doing. So what I will say is usually start building relationship. Again, running a plugin for incubators and accelerators. Through those, build a network of advisors, investors along the way as well. And I think you have to know your business in and out. So as a CEO, you got to know your customers, all the numbers, all the unit economics, your go-to-market. I mean, you got to have an idea and your vision. Like, sometimes you don't know it, depends on the stages you're at, but then try to be prepared to tell your genuine story. Be straight up. There's no fluff. I think, you're building a relationship with the investor for a very long time. So, having all this fluff is not going to go. So be transparent, be real, be genuine, what you're trying to solve, but be passionate. So those are the skills that you need to have and work on, rather than selling that, oh, we're going to do all these things. And then, 6 months, a year later, you're not there. So now you burn that bridge, and it's a very small community. So you want to make sure that you are genuinely solving a problem, you're building that relationship as well. So I would say head down, build your business, know your numbers, and then certainly leading up to fundraising, usually people ask for a deck, and depends on what stage you're at. The investor want to dig deeper, like they want to do more due diligence. Let's say at a Series A and Series B, they will ask for a ton more data, like financial forecasts and modeling and customer references and all that stuff. But earlier on, it's all about your product. So maybe you have a product demo, and whether videos and product videos or live demos that you can show to the customer, your investors and stuff like that. So it is different stages. You need to be prepared with different information. And I think nowadays you see companies coming in even with that before a deck. They just have a product, right? And which is awesome. Like, you have a product video. This is what we are solving. Here is a product demo. Take a look at it. And yeah, so it's surround yourself with investors and advisors very earlier on. Build a relationship. They will give you feedback as well. And then you will get tons as entrepreneur. You get tons of ideas and advices. You got to pick and choose. But I think it's always good to be surrounded by those folks that have done it before, or that are on the other side of the table, and find out what they like to see as well. I mean, certain investors want to see certain numbers or certain validation at different stages, and try to get those information as you go along.
Great. And now moving to some questions that I see have been sent in by the audience. So there's one from Thiv, and they ask, why do people now go for pre-seed rounds? Wouldn't it dilute the company earlier than usual?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. At the same time, as I mentioned, the market is good. Like, I mean, people want to get in very early. Investors want to find these. If you are a great company, right? On the other side, like, investors is like as a great company, somebody will come and put all the investment later on, and nobody will have access to it. So typically, good companies are never going out and raising, and no, they don't spend too much time, because investors have already got the full allocation. And as investors, we are begging for allocations. We are like, some of the companies we actually ask for a small allocation and so forth. But so if you're going to go into Series A round, if you don't have investment at an earlier stage, it's going to be the entrepreneur will say, no, I don't want you. I want to make sure you're value add and strategic, and I'm already fully subscribed. So from an investor side, now investing in pre-seed so that they can, certainly extremely high risk because many of them fail, but they can now invest in great companies very earlier, build a relationship, help those founders and grow as well. Now, on the entrepreneur side, it's the same reason as well. Now you get some investors coming in early. So it's not your friends and family. They will probably be strategic. So I will recommend bringing strategic investors who can add value, give you perspective. So even though you're diluting, but you're getting not just investment, but you're also going to give network, you're going to get advice, mentors who now you're getting prepared yourself to operate as a business that can raise capital, can have external investors, and also bring some sort of a, reporting and compliance within your, I guess, discipline within your startup, so that you can be more accountable as you grow. If you don't have pre-seed timeline, if you don't have an outside investor, okay, you know what, I don't feel like working today, I'm going to take a vacation, come back. So, as an entrepreneur, you can also become, not so accountable. At the same time, take your time. It becomes a pressure to execute those numbers as well. So there are benefits. And then also you can, if you do it without a pre-seed investment, it's going to take you a year to build it, and you have to fund it. Now with the seed investment, you can get to market faster. So you identify a problem, you get out there, because nowadays more than ever, more and more startups are forming in every second, every minute. So you now can go and validate your solution a lot faster. Otherwise, a year later, the competitors have, taken the market, right? So there are benefits. There are a lot of benefits for the entrepreneur, but that's why it's very tricky to make sure that you just dilute enough to sort of ensure that you can continue to raise capital in the future as well.
Right, and just out of curiosity, this is a question for me. Do you do non-priced rounds as well, like convertible note rounds?
Yeah, it's actually a lot more common now. Say, for example, is I think a Y Combinator created, which is, I think, simple agreement for for future, like, so you leave it for the future, right? So we will do convertible note, which is like a loan, but that converts when you raise your next capital, which is actually good, works for everyone, because then you kind of eliminate your discussion about what your valuation is for later. So why waste time and a price round, which is called the equity round, where you have actually equity in the company, to also give some sort of an opportunity for investors. If after 3 years, so convertible note, maybe a 3-year term, that means, you give a loan of 100,000 with a convertible note. And what we always ask for is a cap. And same for the SAFE, there's a cap, which actually says when you raise additional capital, the cap of, let's say, 10 million, right? So you know that if they raise it at 20 million, then there's an upside for you as an early investor going from 10 to 20. But if it converts at 10, so now if it converts is good, now you're going for the ride with the entrepreneur. If for some reason it becomes a lifestyle business, so the entrepreneur is now raising, it becomes a lifestyle. As an investor, you could actually call the loan back with the interest per year. So it gives provides a downside protection for investors. But most tech investors are either going for like big home run or a bust. There's nothing in between. Like usually, I know we will say, like, we are in it to get a big home run, like 50x, 100x on a return, rather than try and get our money and the interest on it, because then that's like you can put it anywhere else. So it's like a zero or big home run. But the convertible note and SAFE are easier way to get into agreement and valuation discussion faster, and delaying that discussion until the next round when there's a little more validation. So yeah, like right now is the market is for entrepreneurs, so they can dictate the terms that they want, because there are so many investors looking to invest in this high growth early stage startups.
Cool. So do you just more about Good News Ventures? So I guess that means that it's not as common to see safes or notes with the work that you're doing or in tech.
That's the most common one right now. Like all saves and convertible note, very rarely we get price round, because we go in very early. Their price rounds are probably like later stage series A and B. But I remember when we started, like even as angels, like 6-7 years ago, it was price round and price round. I mean, we have deals in our portfolio that we joined at $1 million valuation. Like it's insane. But now I think pre-seed and seed, especially if you're a Y Combinator company, you start out with 10, 15 million cap, $20 million cap, even before having any sort of a validation and tech. But you're going through a program that's produced very successful company and is globally renowned and stuff. But yeah, so it's changing. It's changing, but I don't know. I will be very cautious. Entrepreneurs, if you can take advantage of it, yes, please do now. But we don't know what that's going to look like in the next few years. But
yeah, and more as a closing question, if you could leave the audience with any big takeaways. So let's direct this to entrepreneurs who are thinking about getting funding or currently maybe raising right now. If you could leave them with any closing notes or advice, what would you leave it off with?
Yeah, so I would say, okay, first off, surround yourself with other advisors, mentors, successful individuals, and if you have a chance to work with any incubators or accelerators, I think you gotta get started with that. I think that's they will plug you into different networks. So if you're in different geographic region, there are different programs, whether it's Found Institute, Techstars, Y Combinator, and here like the lady that was here as well talked about their program. So I think that's number one. Number two is like make sure, like fundraising is one part, but it's all about building your company, right? So heads down, focus, try to find a solution. You're solving a problem, try to focus on building a very successful business. And certainly fundraising is part of that. And the third part I would say is if you're doing fundraising or you want to start fundraising, start building the relationship very early. Try to get a referral, to get in touch with different investors and so forth, and build that. And I think as part of that, like me personally, I think this goes a long way. Be genuine, be real, be transparent, and I think those are key that's going to help you to raise capital. But make sure you are very passionate about the problem you're solving. Entrepreneurship is never easy. Just as you solve one problem, another problem will come. Just as you close your biggest deal as a customer or biggest fundraising, the next day you're going to start in the grind again for the next. So it's never easy. Whether challenges from cash flow to customers to employees to whatnot are going to come. So if you're not passionate about that problem, you will give up very quickly. So make sure you don't do it just, oh, it's cool to have a startup or cool to fundraise. That you can't sustain if you cannot be passionate and persevere through all this stuff.
Thank you so much, Mohan, for sharing your journey, your time, and also those really, really fascinating and helpful pieces of advice. I'm sure everyone in the audience really is going to take home a lot from this discussion. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
And I will pass it. Thank you so much for sharing.
No, I just want to say thank you, Anjali. And we admire what you do. You're a great role model for all the youth and young entrepreneurs that are coming up. So it's a pleasure to be on it. And thanks, Aravanai, for organizing this. And happy to help.
Yeah, thank you so much to you, Mohan, again, and also to the amazing team at Aravanai who put this together and are organizing this incredible event. Now, speaking of Aravanai, I will pass it back to the team to share some closing thoughts.
Hey guys, hopefully you guys can hear me. Mohan, like one thing that you resonated with me was your net worth. And I think that resides with a lot of entrepreneurs here today. So, don't be afraid to make that connection, either on LinkedIn or in virtual conversations like this, discussion that happen. So Feel free to keep connecting. That's the only thing that I would love to say at this to our audience. And before I let you both go, on behalf of Aravana, we are beyond grateful for this conversation that happened today. Mohit and Anjali, you guys were effortless with this discussion. Anjali, you did amazing moderation, and thank you so much. We would also love to thank our social media partners, Articulate Asia, Tamil Culture, and some of the Canadian Tamil Student Associations. Last but not least, we would like to thank the entire audience for writing down their questions beforehand and submitting from all over the world. We tried our best to include most of them. And don't worry, this video call was recorded, so we will be posting it on our blog shortly. And hope to see you guys soon again for our 7th discussion in September. Thank you. Bye, guys.